Good evening, everyone. I'm Adishwa Doshi, part of the events team at Great Place to Work, and it is welcome you all to the second webinar of the weekly webinar series. Today we have with us Pandit Dasa, who's going to be speaking on the topic of mindfulness and resilience in the current times and how to create a positive mindset. I'm sure that a lot of you are eagerly looking forward to this. Before we begin, I would like you all to go through, take you all through some of the hygiene points. So as you can see on the screen, all the participants will be on auto mute, right? They would not be able to speak. In case you have any questions during the webinar, you can write them on the question panel that is there on your right. It would be great if you can mention your organization name while any queries or concerns, reach out to or numbers of both of us are given on the chat box. I hope that you all have a good time and you all take valuable insights out of it. Now I'd like to call upon Preeti Malhotra, who's the co-owner and practice head at Great Place to Work, to take the session forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Adishwa. A very good evening to all of you. I think these evenings, Friday evenings, are becoming more and more special for us as we get to connect with all of you, our special members. We have kept this series exclusively for CXOs for a reason. The idea was that while are busy managing things for their teams, and a topic like mindful resilience, which is something which each one of you chose, whoever shared feedback with us, this topic sort of came back as something that each of you wanted us to plan for. And we thought that while a lot of us are planning things for our teams, we should have an opportunity where we are able to share with each other an expert, where it is okay that you are not the tough. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to really say that, hey, I also need that breather, or that where I can take a pause and say that, yes, I am stressed too, and I need to kind of calm down. So we decided that we will have one session which is exclusive with an expert for the CXOs, where you can ask your questions. There's his expertise and some very interesting ways of how to manage stress. And of course, we are doing sessions on a larger note with the open community, which are with medical experts, which are with counselors, which are also in partnership with somebody who's our partner on health and wellness. When we think of mindfulness and managing stress, I think it is not something which is needed just for these times, right? Of course, it has come center stage now, because where I think everyone is saying, okay, this is top of mind, you don't have a choice. But what we very often forget is that we don't even take that moment. Yes, I'm stressed. Most of you would have read about shocked the corporate industry last week, right? Which was the young India CEO of BMW. In fact, I have been avoiding reading news every day. I just don't look at it. And because if there's, I think it'll come to me by evening. And this one actually is something that I read or was with me by a colleague, as she was disturbed when she read it. And we are reading about COVID and deaths because of COVID every day. But this one came as something where this leader was actually checking in with his team every day and asking them to keep calm, asking them to take breaks every hour, eat their food on time and things like that. And just in a moment, he just collapsed, right? So when I kind of read it, for the moment when I got that message, honestly, I was in the middle of something like this, and I kind of didn't even read the whole message. And then I sat with it in the night, and then I went into Twitter, and practically I right? And when it just hit me that how important it is. And even today, when I so many of the attendees here spoken over the last week, where I think every second or third person I spoke to told me that what you are doing for ensuring that your employees have access, your teams are connecting with them every day, checking not just on their, also on their families, health and well-being, and it is very, very important. So when we spoke to Pandit Dasa, and I have to really right selection for having us, get Pandit Dasa today here with all of us. We spoke to him and said that, this is something special. Of course, you touch upon the sections that you would in a session like this, but I think there are two components we kind of added together. One was to really make it a part of daily life. It is not meant only for COVID or tough or stress conditions. It has to be a part of our everyday life, right? And the second was something that Pandit Dasa himself shared, and I said, yeah, we must do it. And he said, although it is a virtual session, I will try and end with a 5 to 7 minute virtual exercise where he gives us a feel of a sense of, mindful meditations that we can do. So very, very thankful to both Pandit Dasa and Gautam. I think we have over 100 organizations, leading organizations in the country who registered for the session today. I know many of them are still out logging in. We'll begin in 5 minutes, but just before I do that, let me take a moment to introduce our speaker for today, Pandit Dasa, to you. And he will be sharing his story. Many of you must be wondering why Pandit. So Pandit is an expert on mindful leadership. He's a motivational keynote speaker and also an author. He works with hundreds of organizations to improve employee engagement, improve workplace happiness. More importantly, works with leaders to help them really role model and develop the focus to really emotional intelligence, lower stress, and manage anxiety. And all of these seem like buzzwords for us, but he's someone who's kind of mastered this and works with hundreds of Fortune 500 organizations. Some of the organizations that he has worked with are Google, JP Morgan, IBM, Citibank, Intel, Bank of America, HCM, SHRM, even some of the world government organizations, and is doing this very, very successfully. Interestingly, there's also a story that he spent 15 years of his life as a monk. And that is how I think Pandit Dasa happened. But I'm not going to go into the details of that because he himself, we were curious as well. I know very little of what I have seen on his website. And of course, I've had an interaction with him. But he will start with his story of, he says that when he became, a lot of people kept asking him that, oh, why have you become a monk? And then after 15 years, he changed and actually work with the so-called corporate and, a life which most of us are more familiar with. And I think he will share his story and then take us through the session for today. So please join me in welcoming Pandit Dasa. Over to you, Pandit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Preeti, for that introduction. Now that you said I have a master at stress management, I feel a little stressed thinking that I have to somehow be the master of this. But thank you very much. And yeah, it's true. I did spend 15 years living as a monk, and that was the question that I was being asked all the time. So let me go ahead and start by just sharing my story on, because when I was a monk, everybody was asking me, why did you become a monk? Like, how does that happen? At least somebody from India who goes to America, they don't go there to become a monk.
Right.
Well, let me go to America. Why? To live without money. Yes, that's why I want to go to America. Like, that's not what somebody's thinking. So yeah, it's an unusual life story. So my parents migrated to the US in 1980. We went to LA, and they didn't have much money at all. So when we went there, we had very simple, very humble beginnings. without much money or anything like that. So one of the first things they did was they set up a small shop on so I don't know how many people have ever been to Venice Beach. It's a beautiful beach and there's a boardwalk and there's a bunch of shops everywhere. So this just set up a small shop selling gift items. And I was 7 years old, and this was the first time I'm in America and I'm just exploring, running around the beach, exploring America, just falling in love with pizza and basketball and surfing, all of these things. And my parents were working literally 7 days a week just to be able to put food on the table. It was hard times, 7 days a week, but within a matter of about, I think about 8 years, with a lot of hard work, but also a lot of luck. We have to admit, luck was also involved. They established a multi-million-dollar jewelry business in Los Angeles. Yeah, so things, and we begin living the so-called American dream much faster than we expected to. Like within 8 years, we didn't expect to become like multimillionaires. And so, we had this house on the hill of Los Angeles, California. We could see all of downtown LA, and everything was really good materially for some time. But then around 1992, my parents' business caught on fire. The factory actually burnt down, and we ended up losing everything. Like everything, we went back to where we were pretty much when we first came to the country. So it was pretty bad. I know I'm smiling about it because when I look back, I'm like, did that really happen to me? Did that really happen? Yes, it did. So then when we lost everything, then my dad decides to figure out what to do next, because he was 50 years old and you don't look to start all over at that age. You hope to be just settled. And so then he decides that post-communist countries, and he got some leads from some friends who said, oh, there's businesses are opening up in the USSR because it's broken apart now. So he decides to go to post-communist Bulgaria in 1993.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a monk yet. I'm getting there, but this is going to help me become a monk, just so you know. So then he goes to post-communist Bulgaria to explore new business opportunities. And then a few months later, my mom and I, we pack up our life in LA, leave LA behind for good, and never to really go back to live there again. And we go to Bulgaria. Now we're in post-communist Bulgaria. And to give you an idea what it was like in 1993, no one spoke English. Like this is a quarter century ago, right? A quarter century ago, like no one spoke, because I don't, it was under the USSR, so English wasn't a language that was encouraged or promoted. Nothing American was allowed in, basically, right? It was all. So you just imagine walking around the streets, and any word that comes out of your mouth, the person doesn't understand. Just imagine having that experience. Like you go out, of course now right now no one's going out, but imagine going out and you ask somebody, "Hi, can I have some milk?" They're like, "What? Can I get some water? What?" It's like,
everything was like,
yeah, that was like that. I couldn't take taxis because I couldn't tell them where to go. I would make an international call. The operators didn't speak English. So I had to walk to the post office, which had the international phone booths. Okay, there was international phone booths. And so, I mean, it really was, I felt like I'd stepped back in time like 50 years or something. And so we spent, but then as difficult and as challenging as a time this was for me, I think it was also the time of the greatest growth also. Because I did more introspection at this time than I'd ever done in my life, ever. Because I was really trying to figure, when we go through painful and difficult situations, we ask ourselves, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? When is it going to end? And I think these are the same questions we're asking ourselves now with this pandemic. When is this going to end? And why is this happening to us? Well, sometimes we don't have all the answers, but we have to deal with the situation at hand. Even if we don't have the answers, we have to accept that this is what's happening. And in due course of time, this will end. And hopefully I'll have learned something. And hopefully I'll shift my lifestyle a little bit. Hopefully I can be a better contributor to society, to the environment, to the planet. Maybe I can simplify my life in a way where, maybe I'm also a contributor to what's happening right now in some capacity. And what is my contribution to this global pandemic? Like, we might think, well, it's not me, it's over there. They're the ones who messed up and now the whole world. No. We are all in it together. and we all share a responsibility to everything that's happening. If we don't do that, then we're not, you know, if, that's the only responsible attitude. Like I did something to contribute to this too, right? Something or another, maybe in some minuscule way. We are all in it together. We all affect each other in some way or another, right? So it was a time of great introspection. I'm sitting in Bulgaria, really trying to figure out what just happened to my life. and then that's when I started actually doing mindfulness, believe it or not. You know, a lot of people in the West go to the East, India, you know, to do meditation. I started it in Bulgaria. In Coast Communist
So you
Bulgaria.
found a new destination for that.
Yeah, it was a very awkward place to do it, but I needed it. Sort of like my sanity was depending on me being able to make sense of it. And mindfulness really helped me deal with it. So we spent 2 years there, and it was such an unstable environment. We were actually feeling unsafe at times because it was really just unsafe in many ways because there's no law and order really. So we decided to leave and come back to the US, help my parents for a little while with another business, worked as a loan officer in a bank in a couple different banks for a couple of years. And I said, okay, this is enough. I'm not finding satisfaction in any of this. I'm totally uprooted. Because coming back to the East Coast to the US was also a new beginning. We didn't have any family or friends in the US and the East Coast. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to take some time and go live with some monks in India and see if I can clear my head and really get direction about how I want to move forward in the rest of my life. So I fly off to Mumbai, India, another very peaceful and serene environment, right? So I go there to live with some monks in Mumbai. And, you know, I've never done this before. We're sleeping on a hardwood floor with a thin straw mat. And everyone's got a mosquito net, but there's no bedding. There's no like mattresses. I've never slept on hardwood floors. We're waking up at 4 in the morning, which is when I was used to go to sleep before. So my lifestyle is changing quite a bit. Waking up at 4:30 and meditating for hours a day. And the rest of the day was spent serving one another and serving the community. So it was quite a shift, but somehow I fell in love with that lifestyle. For the first time, I found some satisfaction and meaning, and I was surprising myself. How am I enjoying living out of a small suitcase with almost no possessions, sleeping on the floor and waking up at 4 in the morning? I couldn't figure it out. But I was finding an inner satisfaction that I wasn't getting when I was living in that $1 million home on the hills of Los Angeles, California. Like literally, I found a greater, deeper inner satisfaction on the floor, sleeping. Yeah, waking up in the morning, waiting in line to use the bathroom, waiting in line with the other monks. Everything was communal. And then I spent 6 months in India. My plan was to be there for a month. I ended up spending 6 months because I liked it so much. I went to a few different monasteries. Came back to the US, moved to a monastery in New York. Thought I'd spend maybe a few more months figuring out things and then go back and get a job and just live like everyone else does. I started doing top speeches at Columbia University, working with students there, New York University. Started traveling around the country doing speeches on college campuses, just inspiring people to live healthier, be more conscious, be more thoughtful. And I was just falling in love. And, you know, for somebody who grew up terrified of public speaking, like I was, just imagine a mouse seeing a cat. I was the mouse and the cat was public speaking, right? And that's how I reacted to public speaking. And here I am in front of people always talking about, but then what gave me inspiration, I saw that it was helping them and they were really enjoying the stuff that I was teaching. And so that gave me a lot of inspiration. And so I did that for about 15 years. And gradually, at one point I said, you know, I started getting invitations to speak in corporations. So I thought, well, maybe this is the next thing I want to do. And I know as a monk, I won't really be welcome so easily in American corporations. It's going to be too much to walk into a corporation wearing robes. So I decided to transition out so I could spread the message of mindfulness, work-life balance, managing stress, mindful leadership in corporations. So I have can you see my screen okay with the slides or no? Not yet.
No, I think it went off. Either you put it on or I'll ask Adishwa too, and then I will leave. Yes, perfect. Yeah, you can actually move with that.
Let me see now. And okay, now let's see. I have it, but let me see. How do I control this?
You can just click it and it will.
Okay, there we go. All right, so this is a couple of pictures of me as a monk. So you can see this, right? It's okay?
We can see it. If you slideshow mode, I guess that'll be better. Yeah,
There we go.
perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so these are a couple pictures of me as a monk. The one on the left is me as a monk in India, and on the right
Okay.
is me as a monk in New York City. So that was when a newspaper wanted to follow me around and do a story on a monk living in New York. So they kind of had me follow around, and so that was sort of me living as a monk in New York. And then I spent 15 years doing that, and now of course I'm traveling around doing something a little different, but speaking on similar topics in one sense, but just really helping people become more mindful, become more thoughtful about what we say, how we think, how we behave, how we interact with colleagues and family and friends. So, I think this is I like this quote from Steve Jobs. He said that you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. And so that's true, right? I mean, like right now we're going through a difficult situation and we don't know how this is helping us grow. Maybe we can figure out some things, but really we're not exactly sure how this is helping us grow. But a few years from now, we'll look back and say, during that time, I picked up some incredible hobbies. I picked up some new habits. I became more thoughtful. I became more compassionate. So like, I look back at my life and all those difficulties of, leaving, first of all, India to go to the US was difficult. Then leaving in LA to go to Bulgaria was difficult. Then coming back to the East Coast was difficult. Living in the monastery, I enjoyed it, but it was also a difficult transition. I look back at all of these transitions and realize each one of them were so crucial and vital in helping me grow. And I can only do that now looking back. Sometimes it took me 10, 15 years to look back and say, wow, that really helped me grow. And I think what I really encourage everyone is that let's also reflect back. Let's not think of this time as that it's just a time of suffering, but there's growth that's happening for us right now. We just need to make sure that we are analyzing the growth that we are experiencing right now, and see this really purely as a time of growth and development, and not see that, oh, I'm just suffering and everything is so difficult. And things may be difficult, and not to take away from those who are suffering. What I really want us to do is focus on how we're growing, and that's really important for us to take advantage of this situation. And as we talk about mindfulness,
In fact, I will let you directly. I'm going to go off and just listen, Pandit.
okay. So as we talk about mindfulness, I think it's really important that we also understand how our mind functions. I like to think about the mind as a smart device. In our smartphones, we have a lot of apps open. And what happens to our smart device when we have a lot of apps open? It slows down and it drains the battery. And so in order for our smart device to start working properly, we have to be able to close out those apps. And now a question I want to ask you for the attendees, and I want you to think about this. And if you want to put in a number in the chat, you can. How many apps do you think are open in your mind right now? You can even just take a moment to think about it, right? How many apps do you think are open in your mind right now? Right? Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 500, right? So mindfulness is really about being able to close out some of those apps. And according to psychology today, an average person has between 25,000 and 50,000 thoughts every single day. That's about 1 to 2,000 thoughts per hour. So, when we look out our window now, we see that there's almost no traffic on the streets. But one place the traffic hasn't stopped, it's right up here. This place still has a traffic jam. So the point is, we can't control the traffic outside our window, but we can control the traffic in our mind. And that's what mindfulness is about, learning to close out those apps, to declutter all the stuff that's here and reduce that traffic. Because when the traffic is reduced and the apps are closed, that's when we can actually think with clarity, have more emotional intelligence, put ourselves in other people's shoes, and actually get more work done and be more productive. And this is the two directions that our mind is running in. The mind is either in the past or it's in the future. And neither one is anything we can do anything about, so much so. For example, in the past, whatever's happened is done. And unfortunately, our mind spends a lot of time thinking about the negative things that have happened in the past. Okay? You know, something negative could have happened to us 5 years ago. Maybe somebody hurt us, or somebody cheated us, whatever it may be. We keep replaying that thing over and over again. And now think about, this is how stress affects us. When we went through that thing, that painful thing, our body experienced a lot of stress. It might have even affected our health. Now, when we replay that incident in our mind, we're almost forcing our body to relive the same thing that happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So when we start replaying the thought up here, our mind starts to affect the body in a similar way as when we actually went through it. So we're now compounding that stress from that one situation by replaying it over and over again. How many of you have done this? Maybe you had a verbal argument with someone, and then later in the day you start replaying that whole argument again, over and over again. That's such a useless activity, but we do it. And sometimes we start to get creative and start adding new dialogue into that argument. So completely useless activity. It only causes us more stress. It only distances us from that relationship even more. And then we're worrying about the future. We're planning for the future is good, preparing for it's good. Worrying about things that are 100% out of our control makes no sense, but we do it. We all do it. I do it too. The key thing is when we catch ourselves worrying about something we have no control over or reliving the past, in that moment, it's important for us to catch our thought, realize this has no value, it's adding no value to me, and let me swipe off and close out that app. Get back to my present state. Really just stop that thought process before it goes too far down and you're 20 minutes you spent just thinking about and reliving and just getting all worked up and stressed out. Really staying in the present moment as much as possible. Now, when we go through a lot of stress, there is positive stress that can give us an adrenaline boost or help us accomplish goals, but stress and anxiety of the negative type can really create problems, physical problems in our body. It can lead to high blood pressure, insomnia, heart attack, stroke. It's amazing. These are all a product of our mind, because stress is it starts with a negative thought, and if we let that negative thought dwell inside, it's going to start affecting our heart and our body and everything. So it all starts up here. So before it trickles down, imagine if you could shut that thought out, close that app, and now imagine if we learn to do this and how much stress and anxiety we will save ourselves over our entire lifetime. Just think about that for a moment. And think about how many times we've allowed a small thought to build up into something really massive and blow up like a volcano. And it really didn't do any good for anybody, actually. According to the American Institute of Stress, 46% of our stress is coming from our workplace. Right? So of course, you know, that's normal because we do spend more than half of our time at work, right? About waking time, we are, you know, we are spending more than half of our time at work. And so, yeah, I mean, if we're awake, you know, 16 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours of that is spent at work. 28% is people issues. So that's a majority of things, not conflicts, and just time spent at work and dealing with all the stuff. And some of it also has to do with trying to balance our work life and our personal life. And the American Institute of Stress is reporting that job stress is costing us, American businesses at least, about $300 billion. How? From absenteeism, employees not being able to show up to work, turnover, employees leaving because it's just too stressful, or there's a toxic workplace environment, or management is not, you know, properly behaving. So all of these things are costing. And you know, when somebody leaves, it takes like 6 months to find, you know, it could take months to find a proper replacement. And the cost of that finding someone, training them up, that's costing American business a lot of money, and all businesses, not just American businesses. So there are many things we can do to try to reduce some of the stress. Of course, we're going to talk about mindfulness, to do some mindfulness practices, but some of the things are making sure we have a regular routine of exercise and yoga. Even during the workday, just take 5 minutes, get up, walk around, do a few stretches, right? And if there's a personal hobby, something that we really enjoy doing for ourselves, that gave us nourishment, and we didn't do it, we did it even if no one said anything good about it, even if we didn't get a compliment, because we like to. Maybe it's drawing or listening to music or playing music or dance. Let's make sure we don't forget about our personal hobbies, because these are things that we were naturally good at. We enjoyed it just from the very beginning of our lives. We found we enjoyed doing these things. So let's not walk away from our personal hobbies. And very importantly, positive relationships, personal and professional. If we don't have positive relationships, that's going to be so stressful, especially in a workplace environment. If we have distanced ourselves or some conflicts have happened, everybody in the workplace environment, in the team, picks up on the negativity between two other people. It ends up affecting everyone. And it's so, and because sometimes because of our egos, we don't want to be the first one to acknowledge that maybe we did something wrong. But really, when I was living as a monk in the monastery, they said that if you have a conflict with another monk, you should be the first one to go up and say, hey, I'm really sorry that there's some conflict between us. Can you tell me what I did to contribute to this conflict? And I know in a workplace environment that can be very hard, but imagine if you did that. Just try to visualize what it would be like if you approached a colleague and said, hey, I know there's some conflict between us. Can you please, and I'm really sorry for whatever I did to contribute to that. Could you please tell me what I did? And because I'd really love to move forward. Now, can you imagine your colleagues respond if you approach them in that way, as opposed to like, you know what? Hey, you really get under my skin and you keep doing these things, and that's what's causing the conflict. Whoa, if we do that, we're getting the same response back. Whereas if we go, hey, I don't know what happened between us. I'm sure I did something to contribute to it, and I want to apologize for that. And I'd really love to be able to work together with you and just have a harmonious kind of a collaboration. That in itself takes them off the offensive, and more chances that the conflict will work out. Same thing in our personal relationships. So let's really make sure we reach out to some of our colleagues and appreciate them. That's a homework I'm giving all the attendees today. Is sometime I want you to, today or tomorrow, reach out to one of your colleagues and just appreciate something that they're doing. You're going to make them feel better, and as a result of that, they're going to make someone else feel better. Getting a good night's sleep, very important. I hope that we're not sleeping with this as our pillow, right? I hope this hasn't become our pillow. And according to research from Johns Hopkins Medicine, a lack of sleep can affect your mood, memory, health, and your judgment. Big things. And it can actually, because what happens is when we are sleep deprived, our body wants to start eating sweet, salty, and starchy foods. And that increases our chances of getting heart disease and diabetes, and increases our chances of developing colorectal cancer, and even increases our chances of developing dementia in our older age by 33%. This is all because of a lack of sleep. And there's many other statistics. And again, I'm not diving deep into any one of these topics, because I can go deeper into each one of these: hobby and relationships and exercise and diet. I'm just kind of mentioning briefly, giving a little bit of an overview of really how to maintain our health. So let's really try to get that 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and sleep without being distracted by one of these things, because these things are very distracting, as we all know, and I know it myself. According to the World Health Organization, red meat was classified as a group 2, probably carcinogenic to human beings. So, and the National Cancer Institute says that people whose diets are rich in plant foods, such as fruits and vegetables, have a lower risk of getting cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and hypertension. So let's see if we can try and reduce our intake of red meat or meat in general, and see if we can increase our intake of fruits and vegetables. right? So like for me, and however that means, maybe every day you try to take more fruits and vegetables. Like for me, about 20 years ago, when I became a monk, I became a vegetarian. It was really hard to do that for about a year, but then once I did, I was so glad because I felt better in general. Even when Bill Clinton had major heart attacks, he had stents put into his valves or in his arteries. He said that after some time he developed a vegan diet with like no meat of any kind. He says the body began to heal itself. So there's some incredible research on the power of a vegetarian plant-based diet. So explore it to some degree or another as you're inspired. It's great for our own health. And mindfulness, of course, is mindfulness and meditation on their own, I think that it has to be a holistic approach, meaning that we're eating healthy, we're sleeping, we have positive relationships, we're exercising, and we're doing meditation. It's a whole package. It can't just be meditating and eating horrible food all the time. It's not like we can be meditating and just have horrible relationships, because then you won't be able to meditate. I think we have to focus on all of it, right? We have to take care of the whole thing. Just like when you eat a meal, you should have some vegetables, grains, and a variety of things gives the body everything it needs. Some nice research out there on mindfulness. Forbes has an article that says it makes you more productive, because if you can close out the apps in your mind, then naturally you'll be more productive. It can enhance creativity and memory. It can decrease anxiety, depression, and stress. And according to the Harvard Business Review, it can boost emotional intelligence, giving us the ability to understand other people's perspective. And so when we can understand other people's perspective, then naturally we can appreciate and celebrate other people's success. And that's the key thing about a positive workplace environment, is we want to be able to celebrate other people's success instead of getting depressed by seeing other people succeed. And we want to be able to congratulate them. And when we can do this kind of appreciation, according to the Harvard Business Review, that produces positive social connections in the workplace. And what are some of the benefits of having positive social connections at work? This is incredible. People get sick less often. Did you know that? Like, if you have positive social connections at work, that means you're happier at work. And remember, we're spending more than half of our waking time at work. So when you're happier, your immune system works better, by the way. It actually works better. Stress hurts the immune system. Happiness improves the immune system. That could be our simple way to live our life. If we learn anything from this, learn stress hurts your immune system, happiness boosts it. People experience less depression, they learn faster, they remember longer. People display more mental acuity and perform better on the job. And for those of us, and I think everyone here is in a leadership capacity, mindfulness, these breathing exercises that we're going to do in just a moment, really can help us manage our emotions. So important. Too often in companies, people get yelled at in public. People get embarrassed in front of their peers. And there's nothing worse than that. That is not a workplace culture. That's a toxic workplace culture that no sane person is really going to want to be a part of or want to participate in, right? That's just not. So being able to manage our emotions, meaning that means we communicate mindfully, thinking about what we're going to say, how we're going to say it, think about the impact it's going to have on others, and think about the relationship, the impact it's going to have on my relationship with the person that I'm communicating with. And this is a topic I dive into much more during like a regular presentation. I'm again giving an overview. Mindfulness helps us become more self-aware, recognize our unconscious biases. And this is so important in corporate cultures, because are we suppressing and preventing somebody or a group from rising the ranks? Maybe I don't like their nationality. Maybe I don't like their ethnicity. Maybe I have something against their gender. Maybe I have something about their upbringing or background. I just don't like their work is great, but something internally inside of me doesn't like them, and I suppress them. And we do this unconsciously. And that also, it can create a terrible environment. So mindfulness for leaders is, I can't imagine a skill more needed for leaders now than ever before than mindfulness. It can help manage our anger and emotions and help us become more thoughtful about how we deal with others. So there are unlimited benefits to this. Again, I'm just touching on them. What I'd like to do now is guide you in a short mindfulness activity, and then we'll have some Q&A. So My first request is please, please put this on silent or airplane mode. Unless you're using your device to sign into this call, then don't put it on airplane mode because we want you to continue to participate. So put this on silent, and we're going to go for a short 7 minutes or so. And I'm going to just make sure I'm timing myself so I know everybody's we have a certain amount of time. So sit comfortably without your phones. Make sure you don't get distracted by whatever notifications might come through. Close your eyes, sitting comfortably. First of all, just take 3 deep breaths in. Fill your lungs completely with each breath. Fill your lungs, allow your lungs to expand. Your eyes are closed, sitting comfortably. And breathe out with a sigh of relief, like, so do 3 deep breaths like this. And try not to think of anything other than your breath right now. Whatever thoughts and plans are in your mind, just put them aside for now, just for a short while. Now, I want you to come into the present moment. Bring all of your awareness to the weight of your feet pushing down into the floor. So focus on the point where your feet touch the floor. Now bring your awareness to the weight of your body pushing down into the chair. And if your mind is trying to plan, gently bring it back. If it's thinking about the past, just kind of bring it back into the present moment. This is how we train our mind to recognize where it's going, and then we gently bring it back. And that's how we learn to remain more present and focused. Become aware of your hands and fingers. Now let's begin to take a few deep breaths and breathe in and out just through your nasal passages. And feel the cool breath going in through your nasal passages, filling your lungs completely, straightening your back as you inhale. And as you exhale through the nasal passages, feel the warm breath leaving your body through the nasal passages. Stay focused, try not to plan. Just focus on the breath, that's all. Now, I want you to bring your awareness to your forehead and bring it in between your eyebrows. Bring your awareness in between your eyebrows. And now I want you to look inward into your mind and become aware of the different thoughts and ideas and plans that are happening in your mind right now. Just become aware of them, identify them, but I don't want you to begin planning anything. I don't want you to dive deep into any one of those thoughts. Observe your thoughts as you would observe fish inside of a fish tank. It's a great exercise of just knowing what's happening in our mind, because everything that's happening in our mind is affecting our health. And we're trying to distance ourselves from our thoughts so we can look at them objectively. And when we do that, it doesn't impact us and our emotions as much. Take now a deep breath in. As you exhale, breathe out all of the thoughts and ideas you recognize. Just let everything go. Empty out your mind. Close out all those apps. Clear out that traffic jam in your mind. Take another deep breath in. This time as you exhale, breathe out any tension you're holding in your face, your eyes, relaxing your eyes, your mouth, your jaw. Let your mouth drop down. Let your tongue drop down to the bottom of the mouth. And now bring your awareness into the region of your heart and focus all of your attention on your heart. See if you can pick up on the heartbeat. And while we're in the space in the heart, I want you to think of 3 things that have happened this week that you're grateful for. Any 3 things. Remember them and just feel grateful that they happened or that they are happening. It's a very powerful exercise. Whenever we're feeling negative or down, it can help us come to a more positive frame of mind. And now I want you to think of one person in your workplace and appreciate them because they've supported you or encouraged you or inspired you. Appreciate their presence and wish them well in their endeavors. Now I want you to do the same thing with one of your family members and one of your friends. Appreciate them and wish them well in their endeavors. And now something a little bit challenging, but I think all of you like a challenge in your life. I want you to think of one person in your workplace, now or in the past, that you don't see eye to eye with or get along with. And I want you to appreciate their good qualities and contributions and wish them well in their endeavors. And then do the same for a family member and a friend. You know, if we don't learn to shift our mindset towards people we don't get along with, we're just adding a lot of stress to our life. And that can hurt our collaboration with our colleagues if we can't shift our mindset towards them. Because if we can change our mindset towards others, there's a better chance they can change their mindset towards us. Take a deep breath again, bring your awareness to your eyes, and slowly go ahead and begin to open your eyes.
Thank you for bringing peace to a Friday evening, Pandit. I think I'm sure the people had a similar experience. We can't speak to all of them, but please you can start typing your questions as well. So I think doing it on a Friday evening is a good one. That hopefully all the stress and tension that you had through the week, at least we had a moment to kind of take a pause and think of what were the good things that happened during the week.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
think thank you for that session. So as I think some of the questions are coming up, one of course is asking you, Pandit, that if you were happier as a monk, what made you give that up? I'm sure you've got that clear.
Yeah,
So that's
definitely. It's
from
a
the
great
audience.
question. So what happened was after 15 years of living in the monastery, I felt that I'd kind of learned everything I could from that experience. And I just started having a desire to do something else and do greater outreach because what I'd been learning was very powerful stuff. And I wanted to share it with the broader world because I found that actually my deep joy was coming from not just the lifestyle, but of teaching others. That's where I was finding my true calling and joy. And I realized that I could probably teach others in a bigger way, in a broader way, if I left that setting and went out into the world. So my joy was really coming from that lifestyle for sure, but also from the ability to interact with the outside world and freely interact with them and just kind of teach what I've learned. And again, like I said, I'd learned everything I could from that experience, and I kind of wanted to move forward. After you do something for 15 years, you kind of want to do something new. I guess that was it.
Yeah, great. Before I have a question. Before that, I'll just read this message out to you from one of our attendees who says, wow, that practice was so awesome. I wish it could just go on and on. And you know, how we wish that we could be in that peaceful state. And then you say, oh, no, you have to come back. And maybe some people have some calls to make. So
Wow.
a question I had, you know, Pandit, is really to say all of us know this, right? I don't think anything that we discussed was new or rocket science. Somewhere like even while I was making that introduction, I knew that this is something we should do, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, I would love to start my day with meditation. So that knowing doing gap, right? So how do you make those, either whether you call it micro habits, atomic habits, what sort of worked for you, or when you work with individuals who are, you know, in their so-called busy corporate lives, what do you think would be, you know, one or two steps which you think could be a good start to forming a habit on some of these? You know, I think the ones who do it probably are at least I know I struggle. I maybe manage it twice or thrice a week, do it at all, and it's at the back of my mind, but you know, I'll just get into something else. So what sort of keeps it going for you, according to
Well, I think that one is that sometimes we set unrealistic goals for ourselves. Like,
you?
oh, I need to do this 30 minutes a day. And what I do, you know, because I'm doing a lot of work in corporations around the country, and it's even more for in America, right? For mindfulness and meditation in Asia, of course, it's part of the culture. So I'm just recommending starting off with 2 to 3 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes a day, something that's real easy to do. You know, if we just focus on 2 to 3 minutes, and what could that mean? Take 10 deep breaths. Think of one or two things you're grateful for. Think of somebody that's in your life that you appreciate, and that's your practice for the day. If we keep it short and simple, I think that makes it easier and more sustainable, and that it has a better chance of it becoming a habit. So if you can just do 2 to 3 minutes, who can't do 2 to 3 minutes a day? You know, if anyone says I can't do that, then I don't know. I think there's something you just have to evaluate your entire life. Like, how can I not do 2 to 3 minutes of this in one? Just really reevaluate, and I can help you with that reevaluation if you like.
I'm sure. Thank you.
So,
We
yeah.
have another question which says that self-contentment is one of the key to happiness. And if you are self-content, then how do we increase the business? So that's an interesting one. That does self-contentment means that no, you know, you don't want to grow any further or have more success, but that's a question coming from one of our attendees.
Well, I mean, if the goal of life is self-contentment, right? And whoever's asking the question, and you've achieved that contentment, then, and you still want to grow, that means you're not content. That means you want more. Then you can go for it, as long as you're doing it ethically and morally, and, you know, helping society along the way. You can continue to do that, and, you know, you can use that greater influence and greater success in business, give back to society in some way. But if you're content, then fine. Then what's the need? If you're like, I don't need to grow anymore and I'm content, then I don't see a problem with that. I don't think we always just have to be making more money and making it bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, if you've reached a point where you're like, wow, this is good, this is where I wanted to be, and I don't need to grow, I think at that, I mean, not grow like in personally, like we always want to grow personally. I think like we want to become more humble, more kind, more compassionate. But I think that's everyone's individual call. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think we need to let society pressure us into thinking, okay, I've got $1 billion company, but I got to grow more because this guy's bigger than me and I need to grow more because of this guy. No, don't worry about that guy. If you're happy where you're at, why do you want to take on extra stress and anxiety? If you're not happy where you're at, then keep doing what you want to do. Just continue to introspect and reflect. What is really your goal of life? What do you want out of life? If you've gotten to where you want to be and you have more free time to maybe do more personal inner growth work, now maybe we can focus on that and let your people grow the company. You're still there. Because again, this is a very broad question, and each individual, like whoever asked the question, maybe they have a very specific thing in mind, which I can't address because I don't know what's going on in their mind and what their life situation is, right? So it's hard to answer sometimes a question very specific. I can only answer it in a broad way because I don't know where that someone's at. So that's how I would answer. Like, if you feel super content, I think you've achieved the goal of life. Like for me, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm content, but at the same time, I want to spread the message to millions of people, right? And if it doesn't happen, I'm still content. I'm happy, but I still would want to do it, keep doing it as much as possible. And I'm not going to freak out and lose sleep if I can't do that. But my aspiration's there, and if it doesn't happen, then I'm peaceful with it. So can I just maybe 1 second before, I see some people probably going to be logging off. I just wanted to share that I do have an article and a short motivational video on work-life balance that I can share with some folks. If you'd like to receive that article and video, I just wanted to give you my email address here, which is pandit@panditdasa.com. If you'd like to receive a short article that I wrote and a 2-minute video, a motivational, inspirational video to continue to do some of the things that I talked about, then please send me a short email and requesting, just label it article and video, subject heading, and say hello, tell me where you're from, and I'll be happy to send over that to you, and then this way we can also just stay in touch. So yeah,
we will also share that. Thank you, Pandit. I think when we send out the recording and the mail, we will also share that with. There is another one which says, great session, Pandit Dasa. Corporate world is unkind to kindness. A kind professional is at times treated as lacking fire in the belly or a pushover at worst. How do we address this? So have you heard that before, and what advice do you have for this?
Yeah, plenty of times. So I've heard that before. Now there's a story that I'll tell you. Okay, it's from some of the. This is okay. I'm going to tell a bit of a slightly spiritual story, and I think you'll get the point. So one time, what happened was the snake was harassing all the villagers, and they were all scared. And so then one yogi comes by, and they all complain to him that this snake is harassing us and we're scared of him. So this yogi goes to the snake and says, stop harassing everybody. Let them be peaceful. So the snake stopped harassing everyone. And what the people started doing, because now the snake became humble, they started throwing rocks and sticks. They were beating the snake. The yogi came by some days later, and the snake said, look, I've become more humble. Now they're throwing stones at me. And this yogi said, I told you not, I didn't say that. I said that stop biting them. I didn't say you have to stop showing your fangs. So the point is, I hope you got the gist of the story. So he's like, don't bite, but you can still show your fangs. So I think that we don't want to let that pressure, that aggression that we need to, and that confidence that we need to show affect our internal state of being a kind human being. So we may need to be somewhat aggressive and a go-getter at work, but really be aware that I don't want this to change me as a human being. I don't want this to make me a meaner and nastier person when I go home to my family. I'm going to leave that at work, right? And doesn't mean I'm going to be nasty with all my colleagues. Get your work done, be successful, but when you walk out of there, still maintain, and that's not easy to do. Try to get back into that space where you don't allow your workplace environment, if it's an aggressive workplace environment, if it's not a very positive culture, try your best and hardest to not let that transform who you are as a human. Don't let that affect your personal growth and development. So when you go out, you can still be kind to your friends and the community around you and be loving with your family. And that's not an easy balance to do. So you do what you need to do at work according to that environment. Again, we don't want to get to a point of being unethical behavior, that kind of thing. We should know where to draw the line, but not let it transform who we are at the core. So I hope that was a helpful answer. And my snake story was helpful too.
Yeah. And kindness and aggression in a sense, can sort of also coexist. It's about aggression towards maybe getting your work done. That does not mean, so it's not that if you're kind oriented. And the other thing you said was that the external environment not impact who you are as a person.
Yeah.
We have one more, I think, on the same lines, saying that if while you are content and satisfied, how do you deal with peers or colleagues who are constantly, pushing you or creating stress by their actions?
That is obviously a tricky one. That definitely is a hard balance to have. You're content, and it all, and then everyone else is pushing you, because see, the thing is, you know what? They don't like the fact that you're content. See, when we have something, when we're happy, not everyone's happy seeing us happy. Like they say, misery loves company, right? And so a lot of times, you may be getting your work done and content. You may be doing everything you need to and being content, and that may actually bother people. Unfortunately, as strange as it is, people are not always happy to see other people happy. A lot of times people aren't happy to see others happy and successful. People are happy when others get pulled down. And so the best thing is, if they are doing that to you, and if it doesn't affect and you're stable in your position and that doesn't affect you, either ignore them or try to, share some, share your positivity with them somehow, right? Again, if it's not, compromising your work, or if it's not going to affect your ability to stay at the job, and if they really have no say in who you are and what your position is, then, just do your thing, and I would just kind of ignore them if that's possible to some degree or another, or just question them. Hey, you don't have, you could be a little more peaceful and content, and you'll probably get more work done instead of thinking about me most of the time. You have a lot of work. Maybe it's best to focus on your own work and not on mine, because you're losing productivity that way. Yeah, the key is to really not let everyone else get under our skin. I'm not saying that's easy, but really ask yourself, why am I going to let this person impact me? Who is this person for me in my life? They don't care when I go home. They don't care about my well-being at all. They're actually trying to hurt my well-being now. So I'm not going to be affected, but yet not to get negative about that person. That's our challenge, to still remain positive about them and try to appreciate them.
Sure. And the other one, very often, especially in the current times, right, when there is uncertainty, there are so many of the people in our audience who are actually leading teams or who are the CHROs of their respective organizations, and they very genuinely want to keep their employees calm, right? But they're not sure of what tomorrow is going to bring, or if the lockdown continues, there are at least some organizations of employees, or there could be tough decisions, there could be salary cuts, things like that. Now, in a scenario like that, how do you sort of stay genuine and still ensure that you're not passing on that stress to your employees? So that's a very, very tough balance in the current times, Pandit. So any suggestions that you have on that one? Because I think almost everyone in the room here, or at least a very large percentage, are dealing with that today.
Yeah, well, I think that, because if you're overseeing them, if you're like the head of that division and you may be responsible for laying people off, you can try to encourage them, but on the back of their mind, it is something that they're thinking about, right? I mean, there's only so much we all can do. And, maybe as an organization, here's a chance to really show people that we care for them. So maybe really thinking of ways to continue to support your workforce, even if you have to temporarily lay them off. Like really put them first and see what that means. Maybe it means you won't make as much profit. Can we utilize this time to show the employees that, we value you a lot, and even if something happens, we're going to try and support you in some way or another. Okay, here's something, and I don't know, imagine if it was your children working in the organization, how would you treat them? There's one organization in the US, I can't remember the name, they have a no-fire policy. That means they're really careful in who they hire, first of all. And if someone's not doing well, they do everything possible to train them to come to that higher level. right? So this could be an incredibly powerful time to get your workforce to really buy into your organization and get that loyalty from them, showing that they just won't be abandoned, that the company will do everything that they possibly can, even if there's a furloughs, if the layoffs taking place, that we will support you in some capacity or another, whether it's financially, medically, whatever it may mean. Put them first. If your employees are put first, and when this thing comes back, they're going to be loyal to you for the rest of their life. So think of long term and really put them first. And that's where I feel like it's an organization that's running from the heart, I think. Could be a very powerful thing. And this may mean something different for each one of us, but I guess you all have to think about it and figure that out, you know?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think I know we've kind of, we had kept a little bit of extra time for Q&A. We're almost towards the end of that. So thank you so much to everyone. And thank you, Pandit Dasa, for really taking out the time, spending time with our guests. And of course, we will be sharing this. You can, as he mentioned, you can reach out to him. Gautam, I don't know if we can get you on for a minute and we can personally thank you. Hi. So that's our partner from Right Selection. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Preeti. Thank you, Pandit. It's been an absolute pleasure to collaborate together, and I really enjoyed this session, Pandit, especially the time when we could close our eyes and just press pause. It was much needed.
Thank you so much, Gautam, for helping put this together. Really appreciate it.
Quite a few guests also saying that that was an awesome part, and they wish that could go on. So thank you again, and we will, for all the members, we will of course share the recording and connect with you for the next webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Pandit.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.